Great. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. So we did an interview virtually recently, and it went great, and we appreciate that. And Larry got started in 1991. He had a couple partners started in the real estate space. He had only one investor when he got started. He owned nothing. He was running on borrowed time, and the only thing he had was an idea to bring a completely different model to the business of apartments and multifamily. He bought out his partners and created the Connor Group in 2003. And today they're a thriving real estate investment firm specializing in luxury apartment communities with over $5 billion in assets in 18 different markets. He's one of the few people that's been in outer space as well as the deep sea. And now he's been to a family office super summit. So thanks for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. What else would you add about your background? Just maybe about anything related to where you grew up or family or anything like that you think would be good for everybody to know before we get started on the questions.
So I was not a good student. I barely made it through high school. I lived in the state of Ohio, still do today, by the way, plugged for the Midwest, great area. Didn't have to worry about going and touring campuses and colleges and things like that because my grades were so bad. But in the state of Ohio, if you graduated from high school, there was one school, Ohio University, that had to take you. And literally when you got there, orientation, they said, look to your right, look to your left. One or both of those people won't be here at the end of the year. And they were true. It had a 50% flunk out rate in the first year. So I managed to get in there and I managed to stay in there and kind of got going and turned it around. Although if you said, well, what was your background? Finance, economics, business, none of the above. I was an English major with a concentration in Shakespearean literature, which essentially qualifies me for nothing. So we've owned and operated 8 different businesses, 7 of them very successful. One, a computer business, was a failure, but we learned from all of those. We've actually owned 3 technology companies, and I came out of actually the computer industry when we started the Connor Group in 1991.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that. That's great, especially the part about being a bad student. You know, in your childhood, it's almost the only grade you get on your value on planet Earth is like, what's your grade in school, right? It's like, unless you're doing other sports or Boy Scouts, et cetera. So what was the turning point of massive increased momentum? Was there some point where like once you started doing that one thing or acquired that one asset, everything just took off?
Yeah, we believe that it's a process. So I think the process was one of failure. So when we started in 91, I and my partners were not from the industry. We knew something about operating businesses. And so we said we're just not going to pay attention to conventional systems, processes, norms, beliefs, and chart our own path. We did a lot of things right, but we made a number of mistakes. We were not afraid to make a mistake. Not reckless, but afterthought. The difference was from those failures, we owned them, we didn't make any excuses, we learned from them, we changed quickly, and we just continued to get better and better and better. And that's been a some 32, 33-year process. In fact, today, it's interesting. We did actually our first acquisitions in 92, so we're in our 32nd year. And in 2024, we had a mantra of change, simplify, and improve. And we have 90 plus different initiatives going on this year. Keep in mind our size, we're about 440 associates, some of which are things we made a mistake, should have changed 5, 6, 7 years ago, and others are new and innovative. We believe you've got to reinvent yourself. And you've got to, by definition, if you want to be elite, you want to be exceptional, you've got to be different. And not just surface different, like disruptive different. And so for us, it's always a learning process.
That's awesome feedback. Many times in this room, we meet a lot of people per year. And if you're saying the same thing as everyone else, I don't know how you get a reply from anybody or get a partner engaged. So I think that's such good feedback for everybody here in the room to hear, investor or on the founder side. What's $1 million strategy that founders and investors here in the room could get from you on stage today that you'd be happy to share?
Yeah, so I wouldn't think about $1 million. That's the hoped for outcome. I would think more about the process. And what I would do, and which is what we do, by the way, we have a real estate firm, about $5 billion in assets. We also own an investment firm, small boutique. We manage about $750 million, essentially just our money. We invest in public companies and private companies, and we have high expectations in everything we do. So if I was like many of you out there, either managing wealth or creating wealth, I would think about what results have I achieved historically? And are they what I want? So let's say, for example, you'd like to compound at 14%, you're only compounding at 8%. Well, I'd go back and I would really do a vigorous self-inventory of what's my beliefs, what's my philosophies, what's my strategies, and why aren't I getting them? And then what I would do is I would try to make some thoughtful, planful changes in probably systems, processes, analytics, etc. In our view, in our experience, if you do the right processes and you have the right people and you have the right plan, the outcomes will generally take care of themselves.
Interesting. So the founders of Home Depot, they set out to have 1,000 Home Depots before they had one. Many people say, like Arnold, have a clear vision and just stick to that and work your butt off till it happens. But for you in 1991, 1992, did you have these huge goals, or were you just doing what founder of NVIDIA says, just knock out what's right in front of you, keep going down that path, and you don't worry about the long-term goals or ambitions? Was it like your ambition to have $5 billion in real estate and you knew you'd get there one day, or?
No, that would be no and no. And so we just started down the path. We wanted to be successful. We knew that we couldn't do it ourselves. We've always had a fundamental belief in people and plans and culture. And so we started doing that, and it was kind of one step at a time. And we really focused on, our operating our business. Real estate for us, by the way, here's a differentiator. People actually ask us, yeah, okay, technically we're in the real estate business, but we actually would tell you we're not. What does that mean? We think that we are professional operators of operating businesses that just happen to be apartment communities. So we actively run them like a business. We also think we've gotten to be pretty good investors. And so that was really our goal. And ultimately, we had a mindset of a very performance orientation and putting the investor first. A lot of people talk about that, but if you look at how they structure their deals and things, they're not that way. Ours are very performance oriented. If you don't get X return, we get nothing because we deserve nothing. And with that mindset of investor first and not having just, one good year. Anybody can have one good year. But if you look at us, over 32 years, our average annual IRR return to investors after fees is slightly over 30%.
Wow.
And if you look at over, for example, the last 5 years, it's like 38%. We've done, somebody was asking me, we've done 241, I think, acquisitions over that 32-year period of time of apartment communities. We lost money on 8. Now, I can tell you that's a lot better batting average than what we do in the public, investing world.
Right, makes sense. So back to your earlier comments about breaking the mold, I remember when we were on the phone, you talked about how other people would hire a maintenance crew and they'll handle 6 tickets a day. And you were like, no, we're going to do 20 tickets a day. And you'd keep on breaking assumptions like that on how other people did it at other apartments. And as a result, you'd hire more younger green people and taught them how you wanted to do it. I believe you said, but can you talk to that whole point about breaking expectations and molds? And
so we hire nobody from the industry. Our site people, manager, sales, service, nobody. Why? Because we tried early on to hire a few people, and they, one, thought we were crazy. Two, they couldn't change their habits and beliefs. So we finally said, this isn't going to work. By the way, it makes it much more difficult to find those right people, and then you're going to have to invest a lot more in training. And we invest millions and millions a year in just training our people. But ultimately, if you want to be exceptional, you just can't be like everybody else. You've got to be smart, different. And so, yeah, for example, in the industry, they're called work orders. Go out and do something in an apartment. Typically, depending upon who you talk to, that's somewhere between 6 and 10 per day. Our technicians do 20 to 25 a day. And so it's measured, and we do a lot of accountability, but we also do a lot of teaching and a lot of reward and recognition.
Right. Awesome. What would be a costly mistake that you've had to learn the hard way that you could share with investors, founders here in the room that they could avoid just by hearing you say it?
Well, we don't have enough time. We got 8 minutes left. We'd be here for a long time. But let me just give you one. We all try hard to hire the right people. By the way, we believe that's foundational. We think 90% of your problems are people problems, and 90% of your solutions are people. And so the mistake that we made, and we see lots of other people make, you go out, you hire someone, and they're the wrong person. They lack the competency, they lack the commitment, whatever it may be. Honestly, truthfully, identifying that that's a problem, and then making a change, which is better for you and better for them in the long run, that's a mistake that we see not only ourselves, but most businesses make.
Right. Great. Appreciate that. Do you want to talk a bit about the culture book that you've been, generous enough to gift everyone here in the room, the importance of culture, why you thought it'd be important to give that out, and what you use it for?
So we believe that culture is fundamental and foundational. And so we believe that if you get a group of people together, that any business is a team sport, it's not an I sport. And we get people who have the same commitments, the same philosophies, the same belief, i.e. the same culture. And we all work together. And we don't set limitations and we aim high. We can do the impossible. And so about 7 or 8 years ago, someone said, well, God, you guys ought to write a book about your culture. Well, we didn't do it to publish it. We did it actually for all of our associates. And then we updated it 3 or 4 years ago. So if you said, well, who are you and who is your firm? You read that, it's a simple read. And whatever, 30 minutes later, you kind of know who we are. By the way, we think culture is based upon actions and deeds. A lot of people talk culture. People have got a plaque up on the wall or a mission statement. No. It's really lived by actions and deeds.
I've heard several people say, billionaires.com, you're interviewing these billionaires, reading their books. Like, don't those people just get lucky? What would you say to someone who says that?
It doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
There is no short, easy path on the road to success. And success is by your own definition. You can maybe get lucky, but what's enduring? What really lasts the long term? And it's probably going to be rooted in people and grit and perseverance.
Right, exactly. So you've been quoted as saying that we have a fundamental responsibility to share wealth. Why is that important? How are you doing this with employees and through your nonprofit and kids and communities?
Yeah, we think benchmarks, mile markers, financial results are extremely important. But we don't think that's the only thing that's important. We personally believe if you've been fortunate and successful, that you have both the opportunity, and we would argue the obligation, to share the wealth. And so we do that a couple of different ways. One, kids and community partners. We're really anchored in underserved kids. We have programs locally, regionally, nationally, a couple of them very revolutionary. We started the first private school ever in the state of Ohio, non-denominational, exclusively focused on under-resourced, and the results we're getting are transformative. That's a program we're going to try to take nationwide. The other thing is, besides that, and we'll invest in kids and community, we call it philanthropic investing, by the way. Other people would call it donating. We're going to do about $800 million in the next 10 years in the programs we're involved in. On the business side, it's an interesting phenomenon. Again, we believe you ought to share the wealth. So we have a partner program. We have 71 partners of our 400 plus associates. And it's not just C-suite, it's anybody in the organization. So for example, people at the properties, sales, service management, we actually have 2 or 3 what we call groundskeepers. They're people who sweep the parking lots and pick up trash who are partners, because they are exceptional in what they do. And by the way, no dilution to our investors. All of this ownership comes directly from me. So they're a full partner in that endeavor because they make a difference. And if you get 71 people out there in the field acting like owners, you can really leverage it. 2 other thoughts though. One, you have to recertify once a year. So you got to be exemplary in your job, you got to help other people, and you got to be a role model. And we rigorously enforce those standards. The second thing is, I've always been a little bit surprised with a lot of private business owners. And so we look at it, if it's just you or a small group, maybe your pie can be this big. But if you get a bunch of owners, maybe you give away 10, 15, 20% of the ownership, the pie can literally be that big. And so our argument is, wouldn't you rather have 85% of this pie than 100% of this?
Right, great, excellent. Appreciate you sharing that. So you've completed some remarkable things, like I said during your bio, in the same year, going to outer space and the deep sea. How personal endeavors like that kind of influenced your business and impacted it?
So in all those, we will only do that if there's both challenges and purpose. By the way, it's a subset to that. We got to be able to do them safely and successfully. Well, isn't that the same thing in business? You're going to go out, and especially if you want to do extraordinary things, yeah, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be adversity. There's going to be obstacles, but there's got to be a purpose. By the way, you got to define what your own purpose is, right? And so there's been a lot of crossover and learned experiences, and almost by definition, you're going to end up way outside of your comfort zone. Well, if you're trying to blaze new trails in investing, or trying to come up with better ways to have higher returns for your investors, you're going to be blazing, and you're going to probably get uncomfortable, and you're going to sail in uncharted waters. But the more you do it, it's not easy, but it gets maybe a little easier.
Right, got it. What is it that has not come up yet in this interview about your personality, your personal values, or your mindset that most people would not know about you that you think is really core to your success as a founder, that you've been able to scale? You talked many times about being different, breaking the mold. Obviously that takes some courage, et cetera, but what hasn't come up in the interview that you think would be helpful for people to hear that helps you stand out and execute at a high level?
Well, first off, Richard, I think you've done a fine job on the questions, but maybe an offshoot. So one of the things that we've learned is it's not how much money you have. We would argue it's about the 4 P's. Do you have the right group of people? By the way, that could be a team of 400, or 4,000. Do you have a plan? Have you developed your own processes, trends, analytics, things like that? And then lastly, do you have perseverance and maybe passion? If you have all of those P's, we think your chances for success are very good.
Great. My last planned question here, and then we'll get to anything else you'd like to share and how people could keep in touch potentially is, what is the best advice you could give someone who wants to build a high-performing business? It could be an investment business or an operating business. This whole interview has been pretty much answering that question, but is there anything else that you want to add to that?
So, no, it's a good last question. So, aim high. Don't set limits. Someone told me some years ago, you will never outperform your own self-image. Think about that. You'll never outperform your own self-image. So if you really believe, even in the absence of facts, that you can, well, I think you got a good chance to do it. By the way, on the other side, if you believe you cannot, well, you're probably right on that front too.
Right. When people tell me that they can't do something, I always say, not with that attitude, right? If they already have that idea in their mind, they're not going to do it, right?
Amen.
So, amen, yeah. Or like one I also like is it's very rare that someone's going to take what you're doing more seriously than you do yourself. They're not going to be more passionate about it than you are, right? So anything else you want to add to the interview that you had planned to get across and communicate with the group that?
No, I think that's great. I appreciate you having me.
Sure. Well, how could people get in touch if they wanted to work with Connor Group in some way? Is there a website to go to or some way to get in touch through the book or something that would be most helpful?
Yeah, it's theconnorgroup.com. Easy to get to. Our Kids and Community Partners. It's called the Connor Group Kids and Community Partners. But I think in the books, Zach Rainwater, who's a partner in the organization. By the way, great example. Zach started with us in 2015 in the recruiting department, did an exceptional job. Now he's partnering one of the key people in the investor department is here. I think his contact information is in a card inside of the culture book.
Great. If anyone has trouble finding that, you can just let Jennifer up front, our membership director, or someone on our team know, and we'll help make sure and get that email to you. But I think you can see, just like the other two fireside chats, Larry is very generous with his time, his advice. These are not people that are like so extremely competitive. They're not willing to share like how they did it or what they're doing, and are generally just very generous, exciting people to be around. So I appreciate you spending your time here. Let's give Larry a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Join the Family Office Club by visiting familyoffices.com. We look forward to seeing you at our next live event.